Uh, Bob Ross, an artist who taught us how to show nature in its deepest appreciative form. What's up, cool dogs and cats and everyone between? It's Mr. Ramble coming at you with more science. What I painted here today is a temperate forest, as you might remember from my climate classification system from our first unit on climate and weather systems. Here, we can see nature and its abundance in resources. As defined per yesterday, resources are the things organisms need in order to survive and reproduce in order to continue their species. Those things that they need in order to survive and reproduce are both our abiotic factors, so let's say the oxygen in the air, and the biotic factors, say the trees that are living and maybe the animals that exist in these environments. Both abiotic and biotic factors in the habitat are the resources that enable organisms to survive and reproduce. And if you're interested to paint something similar like this, go ahead and check out one of Bob Ross's instructional videos on how to paint certain settings. They're very fun, and I promise you, they're one of the most relaxing things I have ever engaged in. So we reviewed the definition of resources by adding on to it. It is the things that helps organisms survive and reproduce. Those things are both abiotic and biotic factors. So if you look at today's schedule, our goal is to identify and explain the resource needs or the resources animals and plants need in order to survive. And we're also trying to explain why those needs sometimes differ. And that's important to understand. If you haven't already, go ahead and move on to watching one of the other videos. So pause here right now and watch the video on Darwin's theories from 44 seconds all the way to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And once you've done that, complete the do now by navigating yourself to the do now worksheet and writing down your thoughts on both the resource needs of animals on the first column and the resource needs of plants on the second column. Make sure to write your name as you write your comments below, and there are no wrong answers for this do now. Once you completed that, both watching the Darwin Theories video right here on my screen and also completing the do now, make your way to the plant and animals reading and read it fully, which I'm going to show on my screen right now. If you have any trouble accessing these things, please reach out to me immediately so that we can get you started or caught up. There are plenty of amazing and important details inside this reading, but today I want to cover the basic fundamental ideas that are important stepping stones in order to understand what do plants and animals need in order to survive and reproduce. So let's tackle real quickly survival. Plants versus animals and how they relate to the resources in our world. So here I have an example of a plant, my sunflowers in my room, and an animal, me, Mr. Maramble, as our two prime models of how our resource needs are similar and different. Plants, like sunflowers, first of all, are different from human beings, and this is the main difference, is that they can recreate or create their own food. Mr. Maramble, as an animal, cannot make his own food, but my sunflowers, on the other hand, can. And they do this how? Through a process that we already know as photosynthesis. They collect the sunlight and the carbon dioxide in the air and create that into sugars in which it uses to grow and sustain its life. It also uses minerals in the soil and the habitat around it in order to create other important processes in its biological function. In other words, it uses the things around it, it absorbs those minerals and nutrients in order to grow, not only through photosynthesis, but through its roots, through absorbing the water and minerals, and also through the leaves, absorbing the air around it. Animals, on the other hand, we need to eat. we cannot create our own food, which is why we need to move in order to get our own food, which is another important difference between plants, my sunflowers over here, and animals, me, is that we can travel far distances to get our own food, while plants can already make their own food. They don't need to travel at all or travel very far. And that's how plants and animals survive. Now, here comes the fun part. Since plants and animals exist in the same community, sometimes in the same population, we're all in the same environment. That means we share some of the same resources in order to survive. Some of these resources can include space to live in. It could also include the air we breathe, and sometimes the natural resources around us, like water, different foods even, that animals and plants compete in order to survive. So since these sunflowers and I exist in the same habitat, this scientifically means that we're in competition to survive. And since there are limited resources in our habitats, that means that natural selection is involved. And natural selection simply is the survival of the fittest. But not only between species, so between me and the sunflower, whoever's more fit to survive, but within our own species as well, between me and you. Natural selection says that over time, our own species, us as Homo sapiens sapiens, mutate over time. And some of those mutations are helpful in order for us to survive in our habitats. Some of them, not so much. And those that are helpful are the ones that get passed down from generation to generation, because the genes and the mutations specifically that help us survive are the people who have those mutations are the ones who survive. Those without the mutation, it's survival of the fittest. They will not survive and not carry down their genes generation to generation. So eventually, those people with the mutations that are not helpful do not survive and do not pass down the mutations generation to generation. So as we can see here, it's important to know that resources are limited and we compete for them. And we compete for them partly using natural selection. Once you read the reading fully and completed the questions below, make sure to complete the exit ticket and submit it for your participation and also your attendance today. And there you have it, resources, survival of plants versus animals, and lastly, natural selection. I hope you gained some more insight on our natural world around us, and I'll see you next time.